Ladies and gentlemen, we've got huge news. TikTok is getting banned. Oh, also, they're going to give billions of dollars to Ukraine and Israel, and they're going to force the divestment of TikTok. You see how they play this game? So the NBC News story, Senate advances Ukraine aid, Israel funding, and TikTok ban. Washington, the Senate voted Tuesday to advance the bill. The vote of 80 to 19 indicates the legislation has enough support to clear the Senate in a final vote, which could become as soon as Tuesday evening and then head to President Joe Biden's desk to be signed into law. I believe that that already happened, right? Is this just not been updated? I believe they already did pass it. I thought we had the most.
It's back in the Senate right now.
Yeah, I thought it was still being debated.
It's still being debated.
Yeah, it's being redone in the Senate based on some changes that were made in the House.
Oh, okay. But it's basically looking like it's going to happen. We did have super chat. Mega Mikey says, by the way, the House passed the. Oh, okay, so the House did, right?
Yeah, it's back in the Senate.
And now the Senate is expected to clear it. Biden will sign it, and they're going to wave Ukrainian flags again. Look, I'm in favor of the TikTok divestment bill, and I don't understand this. I don't think we should be funding Ukraine. I don't think we should be funding Israel, but I do think we should be forcing the divestment of TikTok. And I am confused as to why there is this die-hard, adamant support for defending TikTok. And many people on the right are doing it in ways that aren't actual arguments. So one of the arguments is, oh, they want to ban TikTok because China's spying, but then they want to warrantless wiretapping in FISA. They're hypocrites. I'm like, China spying on us is still bad.
Yeah, those are totally different things. I'm not saying it's okay for our government to do it, but
we can get rid of one of them and still be angry at the other.
Yeah. Also, I'm sorry, I don't want our government doing that either. I also really don't want China doing it, and those are different things. Neither's acceptable. Neither's even remotely acceptable. But I would go as far as to say too, there's other examples of Chinese spyware that we should probably ban. Zoom is just Chinese spyware. It's just interesting that as soon as the lockdown started, everyone's using Zoom, and it kind of started in academia when we were all using Skype before that.
Yeah.
I had people be like, "Oh, you want to? We're gonna have a meeting. We'll send you a Zoom link," and I was like, "I don't use Zoom."
Yeah.
The funny thing is when Zoom first became like the thing everyone was using, I was like, "Oh, you guys don't use Skype?" And they were like, "No, we use Zoom." And I was like, "Okay." So I downloaded it, and it broke our studio computer.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, "Okay," like script the driver somehow. So I had to do a recovery date and everything to get rid of it, to get the microphones to work again. I'm like, dude, I'm never using this app again.
Well, and look, I mean, we've all seen it happen where slowly over time, maybe over the course of a few months or a few years, one social media company overtakes another. But we went from Skype to Zoom instantly. It's like as soon as the pandemic happened, everyone was talking about Zoom. And wait, I thought we used
and I think part of it was
Skype
the fact
here.
that they put so many schools on Zoom. They
Yes.
marketed it as being better.
That's why it started in academia. It was massive in academia.
And it was like, well, your kids are already using it. We have to. This fosters whatever. It's a convenience thing. It's always marketed that way as it's convenient or whatever
Well,
else.
I think they were better for groups because Skype had to catch up on
That's
doing.
what they said.
Well, no, but Skype had to actually. Maybe they didn't do a good job of marketing the fact you could do group meetings with Skype, but they didn't. And I think Zoom got there ahead of them saying, it's like, I know this is too ancient for you guys to remember, but there was something done by MCI or Sprint when they dropped the pin. They dropped a pin. It was so clear you could hear a pin back in the days when we had landlines and all that. So it was a marketing tool. It's like,
I remember seeing those commercials where the
they
pin
dropped
would hit
the pin. So it was a marginal improvement on sound, but everybody bought it. So it was the marketing that I think failed for Skype.
Which means that Zoom was prepared to market that way, which is interesting.
Yes, I agree.
No, I think James is totally right. There are a lot of companies that operate within the U.S. that we should potentially be cautious of or wary of, whether you believe the government should intervene or you just as a consumer should avoid them, right? Because you don't actually have to use, for the most part, you can get around using these things. You can opt to use Skype. You don't have to be on TikTok. It becomes harder when it's sort of buried in the infrastructure of what you're doing, right?
Yes.
And this is something that China doesn't hesitate on, right? Like China just banned a bunch of meta services from being offered in the App Store in mainland China last week. This is something that they take seriously. Why does the U.S. not take it seriously?
Well, China is a totalitarian state. There is no such thing as private enterprise. Yes, they have companies, but the state has right to go in and do anything. So TikTok, ByteDance, whatever you want to call it, is still an extension of the central communist system of governance. Within the context of that, since I used to do this for a living, I did cyber stuff. Once you've taken a program like TikTok and you've developed it, you can embed in there any number of back doors, front doors, things which will activate remotely, things that will phone home even if your phone's off. That's what, if you have TikTok on your phone, you've allowed the Chinese Communist Party to have full access. It is what it is. And so I don't have TikTok, by the way. I don't use TikTok. I just don't believe, I think there's other things you can do, Snapchat and other things which are available. But my point is that I'm with, Tim on this. I think that this is something that should be taken very seriously because they do technically own your phone and they will do things to F with you. And I think there's been evidence they do that. With that said, I think it becomes, how do we do it with that? And I don't believe that divesting them is going to fix the problem because if the software is on your phone, they can still have it dial home, phone home. It doesn't matter who's owning the company. It's about what's in the source code of that software. And NSA, I'm sure, has already done a very destructive review breakdown of that code. And they know what those back doors are. As a matter of fact, I bet you they use half of them. And I'm not joking
That's
about
why they're
that.
like, please
I
don't
think you're
ban this.
probably
I'm
because
not
we have
joking about that.
Yeah, I think you're
because they
probably
figure
right.
out how to use them too. Not that I should be saying that, but I'm just saying it's something to pay attention to.
This is true. I mean, you're familiar with the concept of 0 day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
For those that are familiar,
Yeah.
a 0 day exploit means the exploit has existed in public knowledge for 0 days. That means that there have been people who have known about it and it's been utilized or used, or it could have been used or not used. Sometimes researchers will find an exploit and immediately publish it and say, fix this, or they'll contact the company and say, fix this. Here's the fun thing. There's white hat, gray hat, and black hat hackers. And the funny thing is, I had a friend who said that's actually not true. So first, let me clarify. White hat hackers are supposedly good corporate employees who are trying to fix the internet and make everything better. Black hat hackers are the evil people who are trying to steal your money and get your credit card information. And gray hats are people who might break the law or intrude, but it's usually for some political purpose. It's not necessarily evil or self-interested, but it could be activism motivated. And I had a friend who said, that's none of that's true. Those hats don't exist. There's only green hats. All of it's for money. Maybe there's green hats and there's gray hats. It's like activism or it's cash. So you got a lot of white hat hackers, supposedly the good guys who are trying to secure the internet. Nah, they'll find an exploit that no one knows about and immediately sell it to the government. The government will then use it on whoever they want, you or whatever. Here's the best part. Researcher finds an exploit for the iPhone. Give it to the U.S. government. The U.S. government says, well, if anybody finds out that we use this on American citizens to spy on them, we're going to get sued into oblivion. And so here's what we do. We're going to give the exploit to Britain so that they can spy on American citizens using it. And then we can get the data from them because we don't need a warrant in that case.
Yep.
Welcome to the Five Eyes Spy Club.
Yep.
5 nations that all spy on each other's citizens so that they're technically not in violation of their laws. But they are. But that's the game.
Yeah. No, I've made protected disclosures on the very thing you're talking about to members of Congress, and they don't want to deal with it because that's the very thing. There's knowledgeability, Tim, to what you said, and everybody kind of acknowledges it, but nobody wants to take it on head on. Neither side, neither political party, because the intelligence community comes in and intimidates them people. And it's like Speaker Johnson alluded to this in his comments regarding the Ukraine spending, circling back to Ukraine real quick. Well, they came in and briefed us, and we recognize there's a valid threat we have to address. They always do that. And this stuff right here, they use for purposes of trying to, well, we're not really spying on people, but you may want to know this. And they do it all the time. So, and I made my protected disclosure on this because I'm someone who developed and fielded a lot of these technologies, and we developed it for purposes of foreign intelligence collection, not being used against U.S. citizens. And so I feel that those being used against citizens, domestic citizens, who are not presumed to have any contact with a terrorist organization or foreign intelligence organization or presumed to have committed any crime, I don't think it's legal. And it's an issue that I deal with every day. I'm trying to this.
When you were working on this, did you feel at the time that it was likely it would be misused? I feel like
no, I did not.
To me, this is like the concern about AI, right? Being like, it's got all these great purposes, but anyone with malintention can misuse technology.
I was a young, happy undercover operative doing my job.
Oh, you weren't bitter and cynical?
No, not until I had to be a whistleblower, but that's a whole other story. So just saying. But no, I did not presume that these things would be used against U.S. citizens because at the time we were developing them, they were focused on foreign threats.
Right.
And there was some overlap, and I had to go brief the White House on a couple of operations that we were doing, where I had to outline how we were mitigating U.S. person information. I don't want to get into details because it's still classified, but we would have to go brief on how we would separate U.S. citizen information from foreign information.
So do you think the big issue is that there's been a change in how we perceive government, that people are less trusting of government and they view it as more of a threat?
No, I think it's more about bureaucrats. Back to your point about the military, I think military officers not being willing, or bureaucrats being willing to live up to their oath of office, not caring.
Why is it? What made that happen? What's the shift?
Well, I think maybe it's the green issue. People generally have families to feed, and they don't want to be whistleblowers because they're going to come after them. So I think it's all about, in the end, the money, of just being comfortable enough to not be willing to live up to the requirements of your oath. It's tough to do. I'm not going to lie. It's not easy to live up to what one, I think, has to do to their oath. And a lot of people can't do it.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.